make sure everyone's in, make sure that everyone's in the room and a couple other. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Muirwood Center. We're going to get started in just a minute. Letting the rest of the people from the waiting room in. Today, Muirwood Center would like to welcome Judy Newmark and Denny Reagan for a celebration of the Muny and Denny's experience there. And I'm trying to admit another person. So Judy, we'd like to welcome you today. Judy was
thank you.
Judy was the St. Louis Post-Dispatch theater critic from 1995 until she retired last year. Starting at the Post right out of college, she held all kinds of jobs there, including fashion editor and editor of the old Sunday magazine. Today, she reviews theater on her blog. Also, she is the author of The Muny, Songs of St. Louis Summers, a lavishly illustrated coffee table book that makes an excellent gift. And welcome, Denny. We really appreciate you being with us today. Before being named president of the Muny in 1991, Denny had advanced through the ranks of the oldest and largest outdoor musical theater in America by working as a member of the cleanup team, runner, wardrobe dresser, stage crew, office clerk, office manager, manager of theater operations, and assistant general manager. The Muny celebrated its landmark 100th summer season in 2018, which was also his 50th year with the 11,000 seat outdoor theater. In addition to his work as head of the Muny, he is actively involved with a number of local and national arts, civic, and academic institutions. In 2018, he was recognized by the Arts and Education Council of St. Louis for Lifetime Achievement in the Arts. Please welcome Judy and Denny this morning for a wonderful conversation. I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to turn it over to you too.
Hello. I want to say, I'm sure everybody who is in this is as glad as I am that this year we're going to have the Muny again. This summer we're back. And it's not a full season, but it's a real good season and it's coming. It's going to be here. I told Denny that a few minutes ago that 2000 is the first year I can remember that I didn't see a single Muny show because, you know, there weren't any. And I am so relieved to have it back. Denny, you've been going to the Muny every night for over 50 years. Every night. I know. Denny did miss one. It was the night his brother got married and, you know, he had to be best man. So one in 50 years, 50 plus years. So Denny, putting a schedule together with the constantly changing advice, public health situation, how did you do this? You always said that was the fun part, but I bet this year it was perhaps a little less fun than usual.
It was, yeah, it is. The fun part was always putting all the pieces together and making sure it all worked out. This year was not quite as much fun because the directives and the protocols were changing constantly. So you would think you were going to have one season and then 2 days later that would change. We were ready to announce probably 6 or 7 different seasons at 6 or 7 different times. And then we had to keep pushing things and we wanted to give ourselves the best chance of doing a season. So what does that mean? You push it as far as you can, but pushing a season into Labor Day, there's so many other things that happen in the park, for example. So now you're getting into making all those pieces work together. So it's been a certain amount of work. There's been some great people working on it. Of course, Mike has to deal with all the artistic people, Kofi Coleman.
That's Mike Isaacson.
Mike Isaacson,
the artistic director. Yeah,
Kofi Coleman, who's our managing director, and he will be taking over from me as president has done an amazing job communicating with the infectious disease doctors, with Dr. Eccles and the city, to make sure that we were doing things that would make the Muny as healthy a place and as safe a place as it possibly could be. So it's not just our health experts that we have to deal with. We have 8 labor unions that we negotiate with. And so they had certain requirements that they were putting in place, which we had to put into the mix as we were making our decisions on that as well.
So let's say for the people who aren't here with us, go over it one time, would you? What is the season that you're going to present for 2021?
Yeah, the season is 5 shows. There were 7 shows initially. The ones that we removed we had to remove were Mary Poppins and Sweeney Todd. And the reason—
Those very big shows.
Very big shows, yeah. As Judy and I were talking ahead of this, the flying sequence in Mary Poppins is essentially a show in itself. So the 5 shows we will be doing are Smokey Joe's Cafe. That's going to open
A lot of fun.
That's going to be on July 26th. The music of Lieber and Stolz. I remember it because I'm that era. Yakety Yak, Don't Talk Back, that kind of thing. On Broadway is another one. They did many other great songs. The wonderful thing about Smokey Joe's Cafe also is there was truly a Smokey Joe's Cafe in Gaslight. And
really?
Yes, there was. And this is not based on that, but we are the setting for the show this year will be Gaslight Square.
Cool.
So that's kind of interesting and kind of fun. Then what we are going to do, our second show, I've got these a little bit out of order, but only because everything got out of order. Then we're going to do The Sound of Music, of course, a classic show, and that's one.
Roger said Hammerstein.
Yeah,
Wonderful.
had to have that in. That'll play August 3rd to August 9th. And then what we're going to do is Seven Brides for Seven Brothers, another very much a classic show, which still has some of the greatest choreography.
Unbelievable choreography,
Yeah,
beautiful dance.
I think of all time. The book is getting a little treatment, so it's going to be rewritten to some degree.
So it won't be so much like an assault on women.
So yes, yeah. I mean,
That's good. That's a plus.
Some of these shows, I mean, their books are not exactly appropriate, but the scores in them are absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
So
my daughters who are younger, they said to me, they're doing Seven Brides. Mom, that hasn't aged so well. I said, I know. It's really a Me Too show, but I bet they're going to make some changes.
Yeah. So that and that'll be, did I tell you, August 12th through August 18th. And then we're going to do On Your Feet, which
Another great dance show.
It is a great dance show. It's really the story of Gloria Estefan. So there's going to be a lot of great music in that. That is a regional and a Muny premiere, by the way, as is Smokey Joe's Cafe. So those will be the first time that we're doing those 2 shows. And then we're going to finish out the season with Chicago, show that has been at the Muny a couple of times before, once way back in 1976 when it was, it still lives in
the
infamy.
Bleep Show.
It was a bleep show because the show does have a little bit of language in it. Back when we did it, I think it was 76 or 77. When one of those words would come in, would cut up in the script, there would literally be someone step in from the wings onto the stage and go bleep. So that
what a great role.
Yeah, I think they got secondary role pay for that, actually. So that's Chicago, and that'll be August 30th through September 5th, and that'll be the end of our season, which is interesting, though, too, because we're going to be ending on Labor Day, or the day before Labor Day, I should say, but that weekend. And that is, if you go back, that's when the Muny typically ran.
Yeah.
I mean, it ran pretty much from the 1st of June until Labor Day.
And that's it's still a good 7 shows every season, except for last year and this year, but we're getting back to where we were.
No, you're
It's
amazing. It
back
is
up
crazy. It is crazy, Judy, because last year was the first year we haven't done a season. And I mean,
ever.
that's
I
in
mean, you didn't
100.
stop for World War II. You didn't stop for, anything.
No, we did not stop for World War I. Of course, I was a little before us, but we did roll into that
picked
a
right
little
up.
bit. The other one that's interesting is the Spanish flu, the pandemic of
Yeah.
1918, which took place right before we opened. And it was, the Muny was one of the first places that people could go when that pandemic ended. So
Can you tell us, speaking of pandemics, how people will be seated this year? And will there be masking?
the mask will be, masks will be encouraged for anyone not vaccinated.
And for those of us who are?
That if you want to wear them, that's fine, but they will not be required.
Okay,
Our
and the
front,
seating will be further apart?
we think we're going to get clearance as soon as today to have 100% capacity.
Really? That's
yeah.
great news.
Because when you take a look, of course, the Cardinals have already done that. They're going to be starting it soon. I found it very interesting to look at the Indianapolis 500 this past weekend and see 135,000 people in that area. And I'm not sure how many of them had masks on. So we all recognize that the world's getting back to normal. And that's something I think we're all thrilled about. But we just want to make sure we have clearance from the city, clearance from everybody. But you may hear something as early as today, and I do believe you will, that we will be at 100% capacity, which is so wonderful because all our subscribers can have their seats.
That's
And
fantastic.
they deserve it.
I'm really glad to hear that.
Yeah.
I want to remind everybody who's participating today that if you have a question, you can go in on the chat, raise your hand, type in a question. Judith will be paying attention. So you want to tell Denny something about the Muny or ask a question, go right ahead. I want to ask, Denny, as I said, you've been there every night for 50 years plus. So what's your favorite show?
After seeing so many shows, I mean, there's a few of them, of course. There's your favorite dance show, there's your favorite score in a show, for example. But I guess if I had to pick a show that had a lot of meaning to me, it would probably be Les Mis. I mean, and I think a lot of us can relate to that. It's just the first of all, the beautiful score, the absolutely gorgeous story, the love story that's in it, the comedy that accompanies it is so wonderful. And then, I don't know, the redemption in the whole thing at the end is just gives you a good feeling that, okay, they lived a good life, or at least an honest life. And at the end, they all came together in some place so that they could just see each other again. And
the ending is so beautiful.
Yeah.
Of that show. And of course you did a gorgeous production of it a few years ago, very dramatic with the lighting and simplicity of the set and a great cast. I think what really struck me was in that show, your cast was extremely young. It's a huge cast, and you used a lot of musical theater students. And of course, despite characters like the main one, Javert and Jean Valjean, most of the characters are very young. They're students, they're young working women who, let's face it, did not live long lives on the whole. And I thought it was just beautiful to see it so brilliantly cast.
No, I agree with you. They did a great job. Richard J. Alexander actually directed that for us, and he was the person who's been responsible for an awful lot of the Les Mis that have been seen around the world. He is kind of the Les Mis guru for Cameron McIntosh. So, and to you're right though, the kids that were the revolutionists.
Uh-huh.
You had Marius and Cosette, and they were all incredibly young people. And I think it just lent a real feeling of how genuine
It
the
felt so real.
yeah, how genuine the show really was. So I think they did a good job. And then the principals in that show were amazing as well. They had done it so many times. So
Well, sure. Norman. Okay, I can't think.
that's why I didn't say it, Judy, because I couldn't come up with his last name.
Norman. He's a wonderful singer. If anyone there can think of Norman's last name, he plays Javert, and he's a big Broadway star. And please, someone think of this for us.
Yeah, I can't. No, it's like Norman. It's not Norman Price, but it's Norman something like. I know, that's why I didn't go there. I didn't want to embarrass myself by saying I couldn't remember.
It was a gorgeous show. You said, again, you said to me a few years ago that you hoped that the day would come when you'd be doing Wicked.
Hmm?
Do you think that day is maybe close? Norm Lewis, thank you, Jane. Jane Thal, who is my cousin. Oh, thank you, Jane. It's a small world. What are the big shows that you hope to, or any shows that you hope to see at the Muni that that haven't been there yet, and everything has been there? So Wicked is one.
We still haven't seen Phantom at the Muni because that is still touring. That's a show that opened I guess late 80s.
Yeah, that sounds right.
And that show is still not available to get the rights for that. So we'd love to get that. Wicked.
You did get Jersey Boys after a long wait.
I was just going to say we did get Jersey Boys. That was an interesting story on that one. Let me just tell you some of the things you have to go through as you're producing these shows or presenting them. As Judy pointed out, Mike Isaacson is our producer, but when we were going for the licensing on that show, the Jersey Boys has a certain amount of salty language in it.
Oh, sure.
And it uses one word especially often. And we talked to the licensing house and we said, if we just don't want to say that on our stage.
Sure.
That many times. So they gave us the right to not bleep it, but replace it. So that was kind of nice. But there's all these interesting
you said Fooey?
Huh?
You said Fooey, perhaps?
Well, it wasn't Fooey, but it I don't remember exactly what it was. But it worked. But no, you're right. Wicked's one of those. Phantom is certainly there as well. As you point out, we got Jersey Boys. That's one that was impossible to get for a long time.
And you've done Hairspray, which was one of
we've done Hairspray. We hope one day Hamilton would be something we'd certainly want to do someday. But that's, I think, decades away. So we will, but what the Muni does is it tries to go out, well, it does, it goes out and finds the latest and greatest shows that we feel are appropriate for what we do, and we get them on that stage as soon as we can. Jersey Boys, as a matter of fact, we may have been the first theater to get the rights to that show.
I think you were, as I recall.
Yeah.
So, first in the country.
Yes, yes.
Alone in its greatness. Or the old ad. You were at one point, you did a lot of, what can I call it, oddball jobs at the Muni. Tell about the time you chauffeured Donny and Cher.
Oh yeah, that was interesting. I mean, yeah, it was back in, I think it was 1971. I was a driver.
Around the time they had that TV show?
They did, around the time then, yeah. Chastity was 3 years old, I remember at the time. And she was in the back, yeah, and I drove Donny and Cher around. That was one of my jobs. The interesting thing about driving Donny and Cher around is their rider required them to be driven around in a Rolls Royce. And I was a kid who grew up in South St. Louis, and I got to take the car home. So it was kind of interesting for me to be pulling up in our street with a Rolls Royce. I certainly got a lot of looks as a result of that. But yeah, Sonny and Cher. I mean, I drove Liza Minnelli around. I remember Jim Neighbors was another one that was a lot of fun. I remember picking him up from the airport and coming to the Muny, and we were driving back from the airport, and I said, "Do you want to go to the hotel, or would you like to go to the theater first?" I'd love to see the theater. You hadn't seen it yet. And so I said, "All right, well, here we're going to pull backstage." He said, "What do you mean you're going to pull backstage?" Because obviously, normal theater, you don't pull backstage, you go through the stage door.
Of course.
But with us, I said, "We're going to pull backstage." And so we did. And he looked around at this lot, which typically it looks like a typical Hollywood lot, frankly. And then what we did, I said, "Well, let's drive up on the stage." So we're going to go up. He said, "What?" So we drive up on the stage. He gets out of the car, and I don't, if you watched his show at all, this may sound familiar to you. He got out of the car and he went, "Golly," because that theater was so large. He had never really seen a musical theater, certainly that large. It was
there isn't one.
A football stadium. No, that's right, Judy. So
I think there is a story, and I have certainly tried to confirm it and have never succeeded. So I think it might not be true, but that a soprano stepping out on the stage for the first time, rehearsal, looking out on the house and realizing how many people were going to be there, looked around and fainted. I don't know. I've heard this story attributed to a number of women. I don't know that it's true for anybody, but you get on that stage and look out, and you've never seen anything like it. I can only imagine what it's like to do that when you see a full house. I've only ever done it in front of, in the daytime, standing with the PR person. And it's still pretty impressive that way. I noticed that someone had a comment or something. Jane, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Denny had made a comment. Denny, would you like to unmute and elaborate on your comment? He said, Denny, like that. I mean, I'm sorry, John Daner. Denny, he said, Denny, like the Music Man, you know the territory. So I'm not sure exactly. John, did you want to elaborate? You want to unmute and there you go.
Well, the Music Man is my favorite show. And, you got to know the territory.
Oh.
And if anybody does, you do.
Oh, thanks, John.
You're the Music Man.
Thank you. And you know what? That is one of my favorite, honest, not because you said it, but I remember I was dating a girl that I was very fond of, and we went to see that. And when they got to the bridge, and they sang, I don't know the exact title of the song, there were birds in the air.
Till there was you.
Till there was you, yeah. I'll never forget that song, and also the opening act of that when they're on the train, talk about fun. I mean, that you got to know the territory.
Cash for the merchandise.
There's a lot of truth to that, John. That's how the Muny works. It has always, I'm not saying the shows have never bombed. Of course they have sometimes, but there is a real relationship between the city, the community, and this theater that does not exist in most cities. I mean, in New York, you'd say, well, it's Broadway in general, or maybe another person would say, no, it's not. It's off Broadway that you see the real New York. Chicago in comedy, but those are spread out over many different venues. The Muny has maintained this relationship for decades, for 10 decades, and has also been responsible for the great popularity of musical theater in St. Louis. I think anybody would tell you that. Michael Hamilton at Stages, Scott Miller at New Line, Ron Himes at the Black Rep, which does a lot of musicals. They all say the same thing. It's because of the Muny, which over time has created an audience for musical theater here that is unusually sophisticated and well-versed.
Yeah, Judy, and you wrote an article that we still quote quite a bit, frankly, and it was back in the 90s, I believe. And
Yes,
call,
I wrote many articles in the 90s.
yes, you did. I'm gonna zero in a little bit. Maybe it'll ring a bell. So it was, you called the Muny the most democratic theater in the country.
Yeah, everybody goes
Yeah.
and brings their kids, black and white, rich and poor, all ages. And I said the only place I can think of that is as encompassing, as welcoming is your neighbor, the zoo,
Mhm.
which is another great St. Louis institution that's kind of unusual compared to other cities.
No, which is great company to be in, but you're right. And something we're extremely proud of is the fact that we give away 100,000 tickets every single year. As a
Which
result
I would
of-
like to point out is more than most theaters sell.
Yes, yeah. Well, we give away 1,500 a night in the free seats, of course. That's larger than any Broadway theater.
Mhm.
So we give away 1,500 there. And then we also partner with about 170 social service agencies, senior groups, and youth groups. So it's to give them actually reserve seats, is what I'm trying to say. We give them actual reserve seats. Free seats are first come, first serve. But over the course of the summer, 25% of our tickets are given away absolutely free, which amounts to about 100,000. And what we're really proud of also is the fact that we're not a member of the ZMD. So it goes,
Right.
it goes, the zoo and the botanical garden, God love them, they're in there and they do a fantastic job, they really do. But we're able to do it as a result of our ticket sales and also a result of our great donor base. You talked about the relationship we have with the community, and it is strong, and it's a result of generations coming to the Muny. I'll bet if you talk to almost anybody on this call, they are not the only generation in their family that has come to the Muny.
That's right.
Because it goes back as far as 6 generations that we've encompassed over the years.
I know there are families where the Muny seats are handed down in wills. Where
They
people,
are.
Yeah.
They've been claimed
They
in
don't want to
divorce
lose their
decrees.
seats.
Yes, they've been claimed in divorce decrees as well. That I've had to mediate a few of those.
Oh, wow. Couldn't you just sit next to each other? You're not going to talk during the show anyway, I hope.
There was one gentleman also who made it part of his severance package that he would have access to the Muny tickets for 5 years after his retirement.
Good for him. Good
Yeah.
for him.
So, but that's what makes the Muny so special, and that's what makes it so much fun for me to stand in my corner every night and welcome people as they're coming into the Muny, and also listen to whatever their praises are or whatever their complaints are on the way out as well.
That gets right to how you schedule the season, because I'm sure that a lot of your comments are, why don't you do such and such? And of course, if you're a regular Muny goer, you know that for a couple of weeks near the end of the season, you get a chance to fill out a ballot and
Mhm.
say what shows you. There'll be suggestions, and there's also space to write in. I guess a lot of people wonder, does anyone actually look at those ballots? Are
Oh,
they taken serious?
there's another question. I think Elaine Greenbaum had her hand up. Did you have your hand up? No, maybe not. Okay, I'm sorry. I just wanted to check and
Okay.
make sure.
Sure.
So,
No, thanks, Judith. Yeah,
How
anybody
do
who
you
wants in,
use-
just
Yeah,
signal.
of course. How do what do you do with those?
We pay very close attention to them. Very close. How?
Have you ever said, an awful lot of people want to see, I don't know, Camelot? Maybe we should think about Camelot.
Absolutely. No, I mean, what we do is at the end of the season, like you said, we put together a list of about 30 shows that we know we can get the rights to, because that's how we do it. We get a script and a score, and then we produce a show. So we put that list together of 30 shows, and then we have the audience vote on them. And we take a look at what those results are. And typically if our typical 7-show season, probably 5 of them will be in the top 10.
Okay, okay.
But what we have to do is we have to look at what the mix of our season is as well. I mean, you talked about Mary Poppins, so we want to make sure that we have a children's show in every single season. We are doing Sound of Music, we're doing Seven Brides, so we want to make sure we have a couple of classics in there because we need to appeal to a very broad base.
Sure.
And then you get into Chicago, Smokey Joe's. Chicago, great dance number. Smokey Joe's and On Your Feet, newer type shows. So that's something that's important. So the mix is really
But both
important.
of those do appeal to, the baby boomers, and we are legion. Maybe
Both,
even a little younger.
a lot younger, I'd say. Yeah, On Your Feet is baby boomers, but it's moving into
The Latin sound.
right, the next generation as well.
Okay.
To a great degree. But just the fact that they're newer shows, I think, is important too. That
Sure,
we
sure.
make sure we have some shows that are premieres to the Muny. But we pay a great deal of attention. Of course, also sometimes one of those great shows just you don't know they're going to become available, and all of a sudden they do, which was the case, for example, on Jersey Boys. We didn't know that was going to become available. We knew it would be well received by the audience, so we put that into the mix as well. But no, we pay an incredible amount of attention to those surveys. It's kind of like ask them what they want and give it to them, and they will come. It's makes sense. It just makes sense to do it.
When will the tickets for this season, have you already started sell ticketing, or when will those start to sell?
Gosh, Judith, that date's been changing too as a result of all the change in what we're doing. So we were selling our 7-show package. We had started that when we typically do in, I believe it's February, when we started selling those. But then we had to suspend that when it was looking like, okay, it doesn't look like we're going to be able to do 7 shows. So we suspended that. However, the 5-show package will go back on sale this coming Monday, June 7th. So if anybody wants see the season ticket for the 5-show package, they can get that starting this Monday. And then single tickets will go on sale July 12th. So if you just want to see 1 or 2 shows, you can do it July 12th. I will point out that certainly right now for the season ticket sales, there's only 2 ways to get those. You cannot walk up to the box office yet at this point. So, but you can call into the box office or you can go online. So happy to give you those numbers if you want, but
Yeah, when we communicate after the show, if you don't mind giving me those numbers, and I can email them out in an email. I can email them out to everyone so they know they could have a firsthand phone number if they want to get tickets.
great. That'd be super, Judith. Thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah.
Oh, the Muny has always attracted a lot of children, and I would maintain that virtually every show at the Muny is in fact suitable for children. I don't know about Chicago, but apart from that, cabaret maybe, I don't know. I think you could take your kid to most shows at the Muny. At what age did your children start going to the Muny? I know, Denny, you and your wife have 3 kids.
We have, yes.
And how many grandchildren?
We have 3 kids, and in 3 weeks, our daughter will give birth to our 7th grandchild.
How wonderful. Is that your daughter, the obstetrician? Or your
She's
other
actually, she's finishing her fellowship in 3 weeks. She's a GYN oncologist.
Ah,
So she went on for additional training.
I see. That's wonderful. You told a story once about how your kids, Michelle, that's Denny's wife, says that no matter what, the reason everything worked out was he always came home for dinner before the show in the summertime. What was the sacred hour at your home? Do you remember what you said?
The sacred
The
hour.
The moment when no one could speak.
I didn't even know that was going on until much later. Michelle, God love her, the kids, she would just say, all right, go out and play. Because what I would do is I'd get into the office at 9 o'clock every morning I'd leave around 4:30, come home, I would crash for like 20 minutes, those old power naps, and then I shower and get ready for the evening, and I'd be back at the Muny by about 7:15. So we had that 2-hour window essentially in there. And part of it would be for dinner, but that time when I was grabbing that power nap, Michelle would say, all right, kids, let's go outside. You just play. She would literally take the phones off the hook so that I didn't even know this was going on. Take the phones off the hook so that I could get my rest, so to speak. So she was pretty wonderful. And then of course, everyone had to be relatively quiet during dinner, just when the weather came on, because I
Weather, that's what I would.
had to make sure that I knew what the weather was, what they were predicting for that evening.
And the weather, that's your call, right? I mean, not that you get to determine what the weather is, but in case of inclement weather, you're the one who decides, no, we got to cancel, or
Yes.
we'll just wait. That has to be a really hard decision, because it's a very expensive decision.
It's an expensive decision, but it's also, what you want to do is make sure, first of all, the safety of the audience. So, I mean, we are constantly, not in the old days, when I first took this job, you used to have to call the National Weather Service, and they were wonderful in helping us, but that got a little old for them because everybody was calling them then. So then what happened is we got our own weather service. So we could call them on a regular basis. But if we see dangerous weather, for example, coming in, that's something that you have to certainly be aware of. It's really about the safety of our patrons is the most important thing, number one. Number two, a lot of those people are going to come back and see the show. And what you don't want to do is make enemies of anyone when you're making these calls on the weather. What you've got to remember as you're doing that is the people that are coming want to see the show.
Sure.
They are there. They're not there to get rained out. They want to see the show. So you want to do everything you can to give them that show, even to the point of, if it goes, we had one go till 12:30, 1:45 one time. Now, the show had been
I think I remember that.
We had our official hour in, so it wasn't like we were trying to milk it so we didn't have to give the money back. However, there are people there that want to see the show. So what we did is we could have called it, retained our money and sent everybody home. But the right thing to do is to continue with the show and pay the overtime for the musicians and the stagehands and the actors, because that's why the patrons are there. They're there to see the show, and you want to make sure you do that for them. It's important.
Of course, I think that's something Mayor Keel understood when he said, let's have a theater in the park, which was a very unusual decision. I mean, nobody else made it. And it's not clear from anything I have studied that he was especially a music lover. I mean, I'm sure he liked music. Who doesn't like music? But this was just so out of the box. And he just felt it would have a beneficent effect on the city for people to be able to enjoy lovely music and cool weather. Because of course, this is decades before air conditioning, and the Muny is the coolest spot in town. Topographically, Forest Park is a bowl, heat rises, and it was cooler there than any place else in town. But it had, now there is air conditioning, and there are movies, and you can watch any movie you want at home. And yet people would still want to go and see live entertainment, live performers in a social setting. Why do you think that is?
We want to interact with each other. I mean, I think it's so important. Just take a sporting event, for example. You can sit there and watch it in your on your TV, your big
Sure.
screen TV in your family room or your living room, and you can cheer, and that's okay, but you're not high-fiving the person next to you or slapping them on the back or yelling about the umpire's call. You can yell about it, but nobody's paying attention to you. So, and in theater, it's the same way. You might not be high-fiving, but
I hope not.
you feel good
You
about
applaud.
you applaud. No, that's right. No, you really do. So I think, yeah, I did that's what it's about. I think just getting together with people.
Yeah, a number of theater troupes have done things online. The Muny did. You put on those cute shows on that you could watch on your computer, or I think maybe on TV on certain nights. But it was nice, but it's not the same.
No,
And I've
no.
never felt that I was at the theater. I think Harriet has a question.
She does. How did they find those huge fans that make so little noise? Did they have a problem working out the installation problems so they didn't disturb the performance?
It's a good question. The answer is the installation was really interesting. I won't bore everybody with all of it, but those fans actually came out of Canada. Those were the largest fans we could find anywhere, and they have whale fin technology. So if you ever, next time you're in the theater, you'll notice they have a scalloped edge on them. But they're typically put in large warehouses, and they're suspended from a ceiling, which is how they are engineered and designed. So we had to go back to them and say, look, we love these fans. They're incredibly quiet, because we did hear their application. We went out and listened to them in these warehouses, but we said, we need these to sit on top of a pole because we don't have a ceiling to hang them from. So they did have to re-engineer those completely. And I remember when our sound technicians came in, and they were very skeptical as to whether those were going to work or not. As a matter of fact, they said there's no way they're going to work. They're going to be too loud. But with the scalloped edge, it just creates less resistance, but creates also a great deal of airflow. So it was a challenge, but we are so glad we did it, because it's improved things. And now with our new stage, with the blower system that we have there, we have 144 nozzles that we can direct in to the audience wherever we need the additional air. And that's something that's helped substantially in cooling down the audience as well. That was part of our new stage renovation. And it's really interesting because last time you were in the theater, of course, which was 2019, we had the new stage up, but we didn't have the shells in because they were not ready. Well, they are installed now, and they are absolutely beautiful. So you're going to see another new look to the Muny when you come in. As a matter of fact, in 2019, the trees weren't in as either at that time, and all of our trees on the stage have been planted. And I need to point out that we all know that our one remaining tree, which was on, as you're looking at the stage, it was on the right side. We lost that. It was actually hollow on the inside, as we determined, but we were able to take that one, as we did the last one, and create a table out of it. So that tree lives forever, which we're very happy to be able to do that.
Denny, on a whole different note, I want to thank you and comment on, I have had several friends who have had children, able to join, from their dance troupes or whatever here in the St. Louis area, have actually, been part of some of the children in some of the programs. And, that's just an opportunity that exists. And I think it's just wonderful that it does exist, because it gives kids a bigger opportunity to perform. I mean, there's regular recitals for dance troupes, but this is, I just have had several friends that had children over the years able to and make the audition and actually perform in a Muny program. So I just think it's a wonderful opportunity, and I want to thank you. And maybe you can elaborate on that a little bit.
Yeah, it's a great program. You're right, though. They're going through the same process that an equity performer goes through, but they're learning it at an extremely young age. So they go through the audition process, and talk about guts. I mean, these kids that'll go out there by themselves, sing their song, and then of course do the dance steps with more than one person. But I just admire them so much. But you're right, they are getting some incredible training, because they do recitals, of course, with their dance schools. But when they come to the Muny, what they're doing is they're performing with Broadway actors, being instructed by Broadway choreographers and directors. And of course, we have our Muny Kids and Muny Teens instructors as well. So they're learning how to be responsible, how to be on time, how to behave in a rehearsal. So they're learning a lot of skills there. And it's a program that has sent some kids on to some pretty substantial careers. And I'm not just talking about careers in musical theater. Of course, we have Taylor Louderman, who has done many things, Mean Girls on Broadway. She's also in a sitcom now on television. But we've also had some people go on to become lawyers and some doctors. And Daniel Estrin, as a matter of fact,
NPR.
With NPR, he's where is he, Judy? In Israel?
Jerusalem.
Jerusalem. Okay, yeah, he's in Jerusalem, actually reporting from there, and has been for probably decades. I mean,
Well, no, he's not even 40, but he's been there
I
for
bet he's been over there almost 20 years, though. No, all right, 15.
no, but he's been there 10 years anyway.
Okay.
And he was with NPR before that, elsewhere. He was in Berlin for a while.
Yeah.
And so many, I cannot tell you how many young Broadway performers got their equity card at the Muny. And I'm not talking about famous people. I'm talking about young dancers and singers who are looking to a professional career on stage. That's what they're hoping to succeed in. And they started at the Muny, and consistently you hear from young artists and also more mature artists, if you get a chance to work at the Muny, do it, because you will get, all right, in New York, if you want to put on a Broadway show, you will spend possibly years putting it together, certainly months and months. And the Muny does it in a week. Now, 10 days, all right, 10 days. This is impossible. This is something that you shouldn't be able to do. Now, obviously, the Muny has its rhythms, and the Muny has its own staff. It has people who know how to get the choreography done in breakneck speed without breaking anybody's neck. It has all these other, backstage people, the seamstresses, the guys who put together the props. And of course, they have a backlog. And I imagine that some of them are already working on that now. You know that you're going to need conga drums for on your feet. So they're looking back to see, are there some conga drums back there? Could we paint them and use them again? And to get a show up that fast, you really have to know what you're doing and have a lot of nerve anyway.
I think we had a question.
We have two. We have a couple. Harriet wants to know, will there be performances prior to when the theater opens while people are waiting in line for the free seats, as has done before? I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, I apologize.
That's okay.
Of course, we've done that for years. We're still looking at that, as a matter of fact, because with all the protocols that are in place, we've got to make sure that we're doing that as safely as possible also. So more to come on that. Check our website, muny.org, as we get closer, and we'll let you know how that's going.
Great. And also, Elaine would like to know, how are you going to do the snacks and dinners and also cushions?
Of course, the cushions we will be cleaning constantly, so which we do now anyway, but we'll be doing them a little more rigorously than we have before. I will say the covered pavilion will not be open. So the restaurant before the show will not be open this year. And when we're taking a look at what our concessions are, everything will be touchless, meaning no cash transactions, that type of thing. So it'll be very similar to what you're seeing at the ballpark and other venues like that right now. So
I know Shakespeare Festival this year is not going to have concessions. They're not going to serve food, and they've always done that, but they also determined it's just not safe. I think they're going to sell drinks and that's it.
you're right, right.
Yeah.
And to Judy's point, I mean, we have 900 employees. Judy was talking about the fact that there's a lot of people doing things. So what we do is we go to 900 employees, and I know we're getting close. We have about 9 minutes, it looks like now, but
Yep.
so I want to, but the other thing that the Muny that we're very proud of is the fact that the entry level jobs we have ushers, there's concession workers. I mean, we always talk about the kids and the teens that are very visible, of course, to everybody on the stage, but also the entry level jobs that we have.
Teenagers.
Teenagers is right. Something, as I say, we're very proud of. It's something we provide the community. It's there's nothing wrong with working at McDonald's or fast food or anything like that, but this also is a fine summer job. It teaches you a lot of responsibility of where do you seat people, what happened, what do you do in case of an emergency, those type of things.
You started at one of those entry level jobs, right?
I did. I was picking up the trash. Yes.
Right. And
Early
what
in the
about
morning.
Kofi, your successor,
He was an usher. Yeah, pushing wheelchairs up the ramp
when he was in high school?
when he was 16 years old. No, that's right. And people ask also, what do you think the future of the Muny is? And as we're getting close, I just want to comment on what's happened at the Muny over the last few years. We embarked on a capital campaign 4 years ago. It was a $100 million campaign. We've raised to date 87 million. We hope to wrap that up by the end of this year. So what that's allowed us to do, though, is the complete campus of the Muny has been redone. Of course, we had done the seats earlier. All the concrete throughout the theater had been redone. The concession areas, the bathrooms.
Yes, the ladies' room. I think that is the finest improvement you have made.
Yes, we doubled the numbers of ladies' restrooms. But the other thing we did, and of course, the stage has become completely state of the art. We have these spotlights that you work by remote control now. You put a bead on the performer and they follow them. I mean, it's just incredible, the technology. And of course, we have the LED wall in the back, and we're going to be able to use projections at a much higher level than we have ever been able to do that. So, and of course, we have the lifts in the stage that you've seen. So it just gives us a lot more toys, a lot more tools to make the productions much better. And what we've done this past year is we've done a complete renovation of the support facilities of the Muny backstage. So the wardrobe department no longer is in a separate building from the dressing rooms. They're underneath the dressing rooms. That what seems to make sense.
Yes, it does.
And so every single space backstage has been redone so that we can make as good a production as we possibly can and do it as efficiently as we possibly can. And what it does also attracts the best artists that you can possibly get because they want to work in those type of conditions. So we put about $50 million of improvements into the Muny. We've also put a certain amount of that money has been dedicated to the endowment. So that's going very well. And so I guess what I'm saying is the Muny, I feel, is in a really good position as we enter the second century, as we're coming up on season 103, which is something that should give all of us a great deal of satisfaction, because that is the St. Louis community that has stepped up to make that happen.
Absolutely. I see
Great.
an MJ Cornfeld. Go ahead, Marcy.
talking about the importance of the communal experience and what a difference being there means. Some years ago during Showboat, the actor who sang Old Man River received such applause, he gave multiple encores. Everyone was thrilled, and you feel it. Nothing matches that thrill.
Marcy, that's so true. That is so true. That's a great example of yes. Michael, but it was spelled Michel. I forget his last
Michelle,
name.
yeah.
Michelle.
Bell,
He's saying
Michelle,
that.
Michael Bell.
Bell, yes, he's saying that. And not only were there encores on it, but I have never seen a standing ovation at every performance in my life. When he finished that number, every single night, there was a standing ovation. And that's a perfect example. That's a high five in the theater world. So
Oh, yeah.
I think that's, I just have to point out one person that just joined our call just a couple of minutes ago. It's the gentleman who actually helped me close on my first house. He's a great friend of mine, Phil Kaplan. Good to see you, Phil. Can you wave?
Harriet had something. Harriet Snyder.
Did she have something else? Let me see. Oh, yes. She says, I remember when Debbie Reynolds starred in Unsinkable Molly Brown, rain kept delaying the show, and she put on a show while we waited with our umbrellas completely off the top of her head.
She did. I remember that as well. Yes, that was amazing. I mean, some of those old performers have just been old performers. That's probably not a nice thing to say, but talk about that. That's when you get a little starstruck when you Debbie Reynolds. And I remember meeting Gene Kelly and Donald O'Connor was there he didn't perform there, but he was
Joel
there.
Grey.
Joel Grey, of course, Jennifer Holliday, Heather Headley. I mean, there's just been Pearl Bailey, Cab Calloway. I mean, to be able to look, they're not friends, they weren't friends, but Joe Namath, Ozzie Smith, I was a sports kind of person. It's given me so many opportunities. You know, a lot of people talk about the fact that what they've done for an organization or how much they've given to an organization. All I've got to say is it's amazing what the Muny has given to me. And I am incredibly grateful for that. I mean, to be able to, I don't know, just look, Judy Newmark, she's a star in her own right. And
Oh, silly.
well, I mean, yeah, you are, Judy. I mean, but the people I've had access to as a result of this job, the people I've been able to meet, the satisfaction that I've been able to achieve as a result of this job is something that is just incredible, just incredible.
Leslie
Jan
Jacobs.
Barron had, I
Well,
think,
let's-
a little coda for us, Jan Barron.
What, Judy?
Leslie, first of all, Leslie Jacobson, she said, I just want to thank Denny for the summer. Muny last year, it made the shutdown bearable.
No, thank you.
And Janet, thanks to Denny and Judy, the long live the Muny. And if anybody else wants to make a comment, you can unmute yourselves and just and say it if you'd like to say something. That'd be great too. Harriet Snyder, best of luck to you in your retirement. We appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you all very, very much.
Oh,
Janet, good to see you again too.
the Muny would never have been success without you, Denny.
Oh,
Not
thanks.
like this.
I feel I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
All right.
And
Anybody else?
I
Judy,
see
I'm
that,
sorry. Go
I
ahead.
see Bravo Denny from one MJ Cornfield. Gee, who could that be?
Well, who could that be? So true.
Jenny, I can't wait to see you standing there again in just really a few weeks now.
Yeah, I got one final comment. I'm just so glad that we're going to have a season this year because I would have hated to leave
Oh, man.
on that note. So
Yeah, we are glad that you are as well and glad that you're here. And thank you so very much. And Judy, thank you both
sure.
so very
My
much for
pleasure.
this today. We really enjoyed it. And it was a wonderful, fun conversation. And we're looking forward to the Muny this summer.
See you at the
Thank you for
Muni. See you at the
Yeah.
Muni.
Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye
You at the
now.
Muny.
Thank you, Jenny. Thank you, Judy.
Sure.
You're welcome.
Glad to. Okay, Judith,
Thank you. I'm going to end
Okay.
all now. Thank you
I
very
don't know
much.
how to do this. You just turn me off, okay?
I will. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.